What's up, gang? It's Chris Angel coming at you for another episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. And tonight we're going to talk about remembering what you've done. As I was writing that, it made me think of the tone, like, you better sit down and you better think about what you've done. But that was not the intention of the tone. However, I do want to talk about remembering what you've done because as of late, one of the things I've noticed is that my mind, I've known this for a long time. My mind doesn't shut off. And I feel for a long time in life, I felt behind. I can see so far out in the future and I see what I want, but the pace at which I'm taking ground on that big vision feels slow. Maybe you can relate. Maybe you're feeling like, yeah, man, I've been thinking about this vision for a long time and I'm still not there yet. Right. And the longer it takes me to get there, the more I feel like I just need to double down on my effort. I'm going to work harder. I'm going to think harder. So what happens is I don't actually remember all the things that I've done to get to this point. It's as if it never happened. And so if you constantly live your life from a place of not acknowledging what you've done, the work you've done, the amount of lives you've lived to get here, right? The evolution it's taken for you to get here, then it's very easy for you to feel like none of it's good enough and I'll never get there. And that leaves me, when I have those thoughts, it starts to leave me with a sort of this empty feeling, right? Panic or anxious or like, when am I going to get there? Now, let's contrast that because I've been experimenting lately with an exercise where I start to, I call it active alignment. And the first step, there are 4 steps in it, but the first step of active alignment is to begin to simply remember what you've done yesterday. What did you do yesterday that moved the needle for you in business? Now, you could apply this to life, maybe as a parent or as a spouse, or you could apply it to money, whatever, right? You could apply it to whatever it is that matters to you that you're working on. But for me, as I've been remembering what matters to me, or as I've been remembering what I've done in work for the things that matter to me, I've started to find some peace, right? I've started to find some peace. If you guys remember a couple months ago, maybe it was a month ago, I was starting, I think I've done 3 episodes on rest and feeling rested versus not feeling unrested. And I think this is a part of that. But I think part of feeling rested comes from acknowledging and being content with or happy about the work that you've already done. So it's an easy exercise, right? It's easy to point to and just be like, okay, in the morning, sit down and just think about and feel about what did you do yesterday that moved the needle forward. Now, some days, like yesterday, at the time of this recording, yesterday was a Sunday. And I didn't do a ton, but I did do a couple things. I did do a couple things for work yesterday. But even if you didn't do work-related things yesterday, you can still think about what thoughts have I had? What ways did I check in with my family, my well-being on Sunday, so that I'm ready to do work today. Even that, right? Even that, like I slept in today, or I read a book this weekend, or I journaled, or I took a walk. So the point is that you start to acknowledge the things that you've done that will move the needle forward for you. And then what I'm finding is that as I do that, it sort of centers me. I'm like, okay, I'm on track. You can even add affirmations into it like that, right? Like I'm on track. I'm on pace. I'm showing up. And that completely changes the mental energy or vibration of how I'm relating to the work that I do today. If I feel like I keep showing up and I'm moving the needle, that changes how I feel today versus if I don't acknowledge what I've done and I keep feeling like no needle is moving, then the work I do today is under more duress or anxiety than if I'm like, okay, this is all part of the process. I have done work. And maybe the work itself didn't produce a result I wanted, but that I showed up is what we're acknowledging. What I want you to know is that you are showing up, even if you're just here watching this video, because you have an interest in what does Chris have to say about my marketing today, or how am I going to grow my business, or that you're engaged in the conversation. Sometimes that even is worth acknowledging, right? Because you are engaging in personal growth and development. You are engaging your mind and your heart, your soul in like, what am I not seeing that I could see? But do you see that if you don't acknowledge that, if you don't even acknowledge that, I listened to a podcast today, you don't even acknowledge that, then all of that effort and all that stuff simply becomes numbing and medicating. It simply becomes a way that you're medicating. Like, I'm going to listen to a podcast. I'm going to do this. I'm going to read a book. I'm going to sleep in. I'm going to do all these things to compensate or so that I don't have to feel how far behind I am. I'm going to sleep in so I don't have to feel how far behind I am. Do you see that that's different than if I say, well, I slept in today or yesterday so that I could actually feel rested and prepared for what it is I'm here to do? Same situation, sleeping in, but one without being acknowledged for how it moves the needle forward just is more numbing out and medicating yourself to the constant feeling of never getting there and always being behind. So it is a simple tweak. It is a simple shift. But this is why I think it's so important, because if you there are a lot of, well, let's just say a lot of you, and by you I mean me also. There's a lot of us who are using very evolved, I need to say this gently because I need you to hear it from a place of love, right? There's a lot of us using very evolved concepts like self-care, but we're still not feeling rested or whole from our efforts in self-care. And so you can keep self-caring yourself only to not experience the benefits of self-care. Why? Because you're not actually remembering or acknowledging and then feeling into the fact that the self-care you did, if that was sleeping in, for example, actually was good to move the needle forward. It was productive. But if you don't relate to it that way, then how you just relate to it is like, oh yeah, I was sleeping in for self-care, but you feel just as anxious today as you did yesterday. What I'm saying is that when you start to remember, this is what I'm experiencing, I'm passing it on to you. When you start to remember what you did yesterday, and then you connect the dots of how that moves your important work forward in the world, it actually shifts the molecular structure, I say, in who you're being and how you're showing up to work today. Years ago, I heard this saying called, our programming leads to our thoughts. Our thoughts lead to our feelings lead to our actions, and our actions lead to our results. But your thoughts lead to your feelings. And so you can sleep in the name of self-care, but if the way you think, if the thoughts you're having are, I'm still behind, I'm not far enough, I haven't done anything, you might actually even interpret sleeping in, as much as you say it's self-care, underneath the surface of that, you might feel like you're lying to yourself and kidding yourself, deceiving yourself that actually has made a difference for you. So the thoughts you have actually matter because now how you show up to work today in the feeling of it, your thoughts lead to your feelings. You show up from having a thought like I'm behind and I'm not there yet, and the feelings that give you are feelings of anxiety and unrest. Now, if the thoughts you have are thoughts that start with remembering what you did and connecting the dots to why that makes a difference for your important work in the world, that shifts the feeling of that thought, right? There you go. It shifts the thought to like, I have been productive. And from there, you can feel the sense of rest and completion and productivity. And those feelings lead to a different kind of action. And the different kind of action leads to a different kind of result. So let's wrap with this. I want you to remember what you've done. I want you to remember what you've done yesterday. I want you to remember what you've done this week, this month, this year, this lifetime. Remember what you've done to get here. And feel it in your body, feel it in your feelings as things that are moving you forward. It's the feeling of nothing moving forward. It's the feeling of nothing being good enough that keeps you self-medicating and numbing out. And then covering it up in elevated, what's the word I'm looking for? Evolved concepts like self-care, when in actuality, the self-care you keep taking doesn't actually lead to you feeling cared for. All right, so that's it, gang. I'm in your corner. I'm on your side. I want you to win. I want to win. And so I've been poking around and looking for what creates more rest for me, what has me feel ready for my day, and content with the work I've done. And part of that I'm finding is simply remembering that I've already done things, thought things that have led me here. And as a friend in college used to, I'll end with this, as a friend in college used to say, I'm not where I want to be, but thank God I'm not where I used to be. And when we remember that, it goes a long way in shifting the thoughts we have and the feelings we have and how we show up for the work we're going to do today. Thanks for hanging out with me in this episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. Listen, if you'd like to learn more about my 6-week program on marketing, which talks about and walks you through how to actually find that message that's in your soul to say to the world, you can go to groundswellmethod.com. Check out the free videos free there. On the last page is an application button. You can fill that out. It comes to me. Thanks for hanging out with me, like I said, here in this episode of Marketing for the Rest of Us. Until tomorrow when we show up again, here's to you remembering what you've done.